Right, welcome back to another episode of the Me Kevin Show. This is episode number 5 where we get together, chat together. It's fun.
I didn't know if we were going to make it that long.
We made it already to episode 5. We got a lot to cover today from Israel, World War III, Palestine, Elon Musk, Tesla, Biden, AOC. What the heck is Harvard doing? The Fed, inflation, CPI. Boy, there's a lot to talk. But first, I got to get something off my chest, off my back. It was shocking to me. I posted on Twitter. I'm like, hey, if you're a hard worker and you're a software dev, we're looking for a full stack software dev. And the response, I don't know if it's just Twitter, but the world of responses that you get out there, hopefully it's the minority of people out there, but it's very Yaomi-esque. It's very like, well, I don't want to relocate. Well, how much is it going to pay? Well, I don't want to get underpaid. And it's like, bro, like the best people who work for me, they start out with, hey, what's your idea? What are you thinking? Here's my resume. Here's my skill set. What do you got? Let's talk about it. It's like, obviously, you're going to negotiate something, right? You're going to talk about, like, well, that's what you need. Maybe you're not the right guy for the job. And you're like, nah, that's not for me. Or you're like, you know what? That's actually really exciting. I'm game. What is it going to take for me to be a part of that? But people don't even let themselves get to that phase in a job because they're like, what? Why would I relocate? If somebody told you, just as an example, you're going to get paid $20 million a year to relocate to San Francisco, probably anybody watching right now would do it. They'd be like, yeah, I buy lots of guns for that. It's like, it's like, at least hear the offer. But the attitude out there is something that we regularly talk about, whether it's in the courses or the Daily Wealth newsletter, or we talk about it here as well. It's that attitude of the, well, you better pay me, and you pay me this first and then I'll work hard. I'll tell you, the hardest workers that I've ever had working for me, they started out working low, working like a basic menial job, and then they explode into, you'd be perfect for this, you'd be perfect for this, and they fit into these amazing roles. And then they get paid well, and we give people pay raises every year, and actually next year, everyone working with us might be over 6 figures, which would be pretty cool. I think we do a great job. I don't know, maybe you're better off saying, McKay, you chime in on this. I don't know, Mike, what do you guys think?
I think the whole aspect of entitlement is something that you've really opened my eyes to, is like, don't do you owe me, ask what can I do more.
Yeah, well, and people don't want to hear that. I think people on the internet are like, what? Kevin's asking, what can you do more? He's a slave driver!
Well, it's interesting. Like, in my life, I've been from the bottom and had to fight my way to the top of everything, whether it be football, whether it be different leadership positions or different work responsibilities. And I've never gotten those because I only work that amount of time. It's always because I'm the first in the office, getting everything ready, and the last out. And I don't say that for my own ego, but I say, like, that's a pattern that I have found that works for me to be able to provide more value to the people around me, is going the extra mile before work, after work. Hey, what can I do to help you? Do you need anything? Or like thinking outside, like, hey, I have an idea. Because those are oftentimes just as valuable as bouncing ideas off each other. Of them, some of them are good, some of them are not so good. And then you can kind of be on the same page and be excited about the future together. So that's kind of my thoughts on entitlement and things like that.
Totally agree. Yeah. And if you want to send us a resume, send us one at jobs@meetkevin.com. Christian, I hear the fan a little bit. Maybe we can drop that down to 1. Thanks, man. We got it nice and cool now. I don't know. I always get overheated running over here, but it's kind of fun because there's so much going on. So let's talk about some of the big things we got. I have the remote? I have it.
While he's changing the AC, if you email jobs@meetkevin, send me a 2-minute unlisted YouTube video. Just kind of your background, your education, your career, what technologies that you work on for the software stacks. Just a 2-minute unlisted YouTube video. We won't share it with anybody. It just helps us to get to know who we're talking to a little bit better.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so let's go talk. We got Fed coming up. Not only do we have Fed coming up, we've got, we have another flip-flopper at the Fed, Mr. Kashkari. Kashkari used to be the biggest dove at the Fed. He used to be the guy at the Fed that was like, inflation is transitory. It is going away. There is no more inflation. Now, all of the hawks who are like, no, inflation's not transitory, and they were like, we need to raise rates fast. We need to raise rates maybe even 1 percentage point in total, like at a time. These folks are like, I think we've come far enough. And now there's news today that Kashkari's coming out as all the other Fed officials are going, we're probably done. We've probably raised rates enough. Now Kashkari is coming out just 2 days before CPI suggesting, it might be too early to say we're done raising rates. I really am convinced the Federal Reserve is trying to manipulate markets into believing that the Fed actually really still matters at this point. I mean, really, does another 25 basis points matter? Are you guys going to care at another 25 BPs?
It's more the duration. That's what everybody's worried about.
Absolutely, that absolutely matters. And really, at this point, this talk about an extra hike, I think what it is they're deathly afraid of everybody buying bonds, because as soon as everybody goes and buys bonds, their quantitative tightening stops working. Remember, they're selling bonds like crazy right now. In doing so, they're driving yields up, making credit cards more expensive, homes, cars, everything more expensive, student loans. All of that's becoming more expensive. As soon as all of us are like, and everybody in the YouTube community or whatever, all right, buy bonds. And everybody goes and buys bonds because they're like, great, I'm going to get a 4% yield plus capital appreciation. Well, then all of a sudden rates plummet and the Federal Reserve's tightening goes away. Their quantitative tightening doesn't do anything.
Well, HouseHack was a huge benefit of that. Beneficiary of that. No, like what was the first thing you did after the Reg D fundraise?
Oh, well, I mean, it was, in my opinion, it was great timing. You had money markets paying 2% and treasury yields were sitting at like 4.25%. And we're like, please load me up, baby. So,
yeah.
I mean, we've had over a year now of just capital, our money, our cash, basically making money as we're hunting for deals. I mean, we probably have, 1 to 2 free properties now because of money that's been sitting in treasuries.
We're thankful for Jerome Powell.
Yeah,
good job.
Absolutely. Like I said, someday people are going to start naming their kids after this guy. So next, we've got inflation coming up, and then we're going to get into Israel here to catch up. So inflation numbers to pay attention to this week. Tomorrow morning, the first thing that's going to happen is we have producer price inflation. That's PPI, producer price inflation. Keep in mind that not all producer prices are absolutely going to drive higher consumer prices. That's because a lot of companies had what I thought and called faux pricing power. This idea that, our costs are going up, let's raise prices on consumers. That works as long as consumers can afford to pay more. But when consumers can't afford to pay anymore, guess what happens? They stop buying. And so all of a sudden, companies start getting really bashful. It's like Pepsi this morning. Pepsi in January is like, inflation's bad. We're raising prices 9%, but our brand is so good, we're great. Now they're like, maybe we'll be able to raise prices 2 or 3%. Don't ask us about pricing, please. It's like, you losers. So it's really funny, but I mean, their costs could actually drive up via PPI here, whether it's higher freight costs or whatever, without actually seeing inflation drive up. So we'll see. That'll be a very, very, very critical moment for inflation numbers, not only tomorrow. Mark your calendar for 5:30 in the morning. I'll be streaming that live. We'll cover that live. We're looking for 0.3% final demand month over month and core month over month of 0.2. CPI the very next day on the 12th. Coming on, expected to come in at 0.3. That's rounded up from 0.26% on the headline. And core, we are looking for also 0.26%, rounded up to 0.3. And then this Friday, we have a price increase for those Noob vs. Pro courses on building your wealth. Email McKay at staffandmekevin.com if you need a bundle for either the Profit Portal or the other courses. And what do you guys got? Let's hear it.
Well, we could start with some oil.
Let's do it. Let's talk oil in Israel because it's devastating. I was with Lauren a little bit earlier, and we were just talking about how miserable to think that your wife could be at home taking care of babies, and then people with guns and knives and violence and a murderous outlook just break into your home. And I know I see some people's comments. They're like, well, the Israeli the Israeli military shouldn't have killed innocent people in Palestine, and that's true. Just like Hamas shouldn't kill innocent people as well. Like, keep innocent people out of it.
What's the background on that? Because that's not a lot of what's talked about. Do you want back up a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean,
What happened in Palestine?
Well, this background has been going on. I mean, we'll shorten it because we talk about it for hours on the other live streams. But a short backup. Israel didn't exist until after the Holocaust. However, the Jewish Holy Land has claim that goes back thousands of years. Now, nobody exactly knows. Well, is it this big? Is it this big? Is it that big? Is it everything? Right? Like nobody really knows. Now, of course, there's the Jewish point of view, and then there's the non-Jewish point of view. And so there is a cultural difference here, and then there's a land dispute combined with that. So there's hate via culture and then hate because of land. So you have, as of 1946, the creation of this start of like a two-state solution, which really took more hold in 1967, which is, okay, look, it didn't work out having Jews and non-Jews together, so let's just separate y'all, okay? Y'all get half of Jerusalem, y'all get the other half of Jerusalem. Be happy. Long and short of it, after many conflicts of not only attacks against Jews, but then counterattacks from Jews, or just straight-on attacks from Jews, or even settlements from Jews, or vice versa, well, you have massive hate. And so I know we're going to be talking about Saudi Arabia in a little bit here, but I mean, think just as recently as this June, we had Israel approve 5,700 settler homes. Think about it, like new construction homes in parts of the West Bank, which are, controlled by Palestine. That pisses off a lot of people. And so there's this frustration in the Muslim community or the Arab community, or a combination of both, and one being religious, one being ethnic. There's this frustration that, okay, well, or is Israel just basically trying to take over everything again, going back to the roots of what they used to have, the Holy Kingdom, because they have no other true just Jewish country, or a just Jewish country. I mean, you could say parts of New York and South Florida, but I mean, that's different. I grew up in South Florida. I think it's wonderful. I think my father he was married to a Jewish person once, amazing family, and then almost married to another Jewish person before that. She let me drive her BMW around.
She's the cool one.
She had that convertible BMW I was talking about. I'm like, man, I wish I had a convertible. That's the place to have a convertibles in Florida, because it's hot.
Except for those flash rainstorms that come out of nowhere.
We don't talk about that.
The reason that I asked about that backstory is because obviously what's happening is despicable. Nobody likes seeing the violence or any sort of heinous crimes like this.
So bad.
But it's really important to understand the background of what's happening to see what is, like, obviously Hamas is a terrorist group, but why are they fighting?
Right.
Like, what is the reason? So thank you for sharing some kind of background on that, because it's important for not only me, but I think a lot of the viewers appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the way to look at it is it's almost like a way of trying to exert an exemplification of the frustration that maybe the Arab or Muslim community is feeling, that, hey, we're being stepped on here, or we're not being respected. But of course, on the flip side, does that justify killing babies, in southern towns in Israel? No, of course not. I'm a big fan of diplomacy. And, what's interesting is if you study history, there's no modern democracy that has ever gone to war with each other.
That's interesting.
Really interesting.
That is interesting.
It's always the autocrats. It's always some leader who's like, my PP is larger. Have you seen my PP portfolio?
Have you, obviously we're going to keep talking about it, but so far, have you learned anything that you didn't know, or that might have been, obviously like the micro, the years and stuff like that, but more of a macro term of the war? Have you learned anything that kind of maybe you had different perceptions about before? Yeah,
I mean, one of the things that's interesting is you look at Iran and you really wonder, what do you do with a country like that? What do you do with not a terrorist group, which most can agree suck, like the Taliban, although there are Taliban sympathizers, obviously, in Afghanistan, because they provide stability and peace for people's homes. Nobody wants to be at war in their backyard. They want to farm, they want to work, they want to do what they want and raise their children. Like, it's not that complicated. But what do you do when the war shows up at your house? It's not that easy to just go, oh, let's move, honey, let's get in the jet and move. It's not that easy. So especially all the flights are getting canceled going out of Israel. But as far as state sponsors of terrorism, you have to look at countries like North Korea, to a lot of an extent, Russia, and Iran, and you say, just what do you do with these sort of countries? At least which we'll talk about in a moment, Saudi Arabia, who, think about it, used to have a complete boycott on Israeli goods going back to like 2005, 6, and then they're like, okay, no more boycott, and they're like, still boycott them, like, of course. That's just humanity. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll stop boycotting them. So you get that sort of that hate, but that can be negotiated away. Like, they got a new good product. Like, think about Mobileye. Mobileye is like a Tesla FSD competitor, and they were bought by Intel. That is an all-Israeli company. They did a fantastic job at manufacturing products and autonomous software for self-driving vehicles. They're part of the mapping and LiDAR kind of base. But, the big question is, how do you tackle someone or a country like Iran, where they're maybe sending crypto payments to Hamas? You can't track those down. We all know about Tornado Crash. How do you respond? Donald Trump obviously cheers that. Well, he knows how to respond. He says, if you touch one American, what'll happen? We'll fight back. And then so what does he do? Oh, it's a drone strike on some nuclear scientists or military leaders or whatever. And then you want to keep going, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people were looking for in Joe Biden today, was some kind of show of force. And they I don't know if you guys saw it. They tried.
I listened to it, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see where they tried getting Biden to act tough? They're like, if you bother us basically in our support for Israel, all I have to say is don't.
Yeah, that was some big don't.
yeah. It's like, oh, here it comes. He's here. Just don't. Please.
Please, bro.
Come on. Trust me, bro. Don't, bro.
I personally don't, like, Biden speaking is not the most powerful person. Like, I wouldn't be afraid if he was in a room talking to him.
Right.
But I was more paying attention to what is the message of the United States.
Right.
And I haven't gotten a chance to read it, but I listened to it.
Yeah.
And it sounded like one of the more powerful speeches that we've heard from the office of the president in a while. So I was happy to hear this dance of power. It may not have been like my button's bigger than yours and it works.
Sure.
But
and it works.
It did show a lot more power than I was expecting.
Right. But I wonder, are we comparing that to a pretty dang low bar? Unfortunately.
Yeah, that might be true.
So, that's probably where you're going to get a lot of Republicans who are like, McKay, you are 100% right. That was the most powerful speech ever, and it was still weak sauce.
Yeah, it was like the climatic, don't touch us. It's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But I did like that. I don't know why they were so late, but it did seem a little more powerful than I was expecting.
You had Jake Sullivan afterwards in the press conference, National Security Advisor, come out, and he was drilled about 3 or 4 different times about the $6 billion to Iran. And this is really money this is Iran's money that's sanctioned in South Korea. It's being moved to Qatar. And that money will be available for humanitarian purposes for Iran. And so the official stance of the president is, well, not a single dollar of those $6 billion have left yet. But I mean, let's be real, when a $6 billion check's coming in, you could go on margin over here for a few.
Yeah, this might blow people's mind, but money is fungible.
Yeah, it's like 6 in here, I could just replace them. Yeah, exactly. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
Not to be confused with non-fungible tokens, which are all supposed to be unique. Ooh.
Worthless.
Oh, well, so they are actually all the same.
Oh no. So what's going on with oil in the Middle East, Mikey?
Yeah, let's go with that. Well, first of all, Kevin, I want to commend you for the way you've been covering a lot of this crisis, because I remember when I was in high school and I had a big essay that I had to do on the Arab-Israeli conflict, and what I had learned is there are no unbiased sources to this, right? Everyone's got an opinion and everyone's kind of got a one-sided take on it, and it's probably the topic with the most biases. So I really like the way you've been reporting it. Here's what's happening. Sometimes a lot of people will be like, well, what side are you on? Are you on this side or on that side? There's some conflicts where, there's both sides make mistakes, and it's just a matter of what do we do from here?
And that's the thing, and it's so terrible to think of just the devastation that's happening, but it's not even just the devastation that has happened, it's what's about to happen. I guarantee there are millions of people inside the West Bank, which is a region of about 4.5 million people. But of those 4.5 million, I would guess at least 2 million of them, at least close to half of them, are probably oh God, we need to leave. And the problem is, where do you go? Well, on the western border, you have the ocean. So you ain't getting anywhere. Because guess what's there? The United States and their aircraft carrier and their fleet. Not that they would necessarily do anything. But to the south, you have the Egyptian border, but that's locked. So you can't go that way. To the west and to the north, you have Israel. So you're literally stuck. You could literally go nowhere. Probably the best place to go if you're in the Gaza Strip is to unpopulated areas, because the airstrikes that are being conducted now are in populated areas, populated cities. And it's terrible. But I what I was going to say is I bet there are millions of people who are just, God, this is going to destroy my children's preschool. Even if we survive this, it's going to set back our family's business, our children's future for years. All because a political faction caught Israel sleeping at the wheel on the border. I have no freaking idea how Israel didn't have a better heads up on this one. We're supposed to feel like, oh, America's the greatest nation on earth. We know everything. Our CIA knows everything. How the did they miss this?
Yeah.
This is insane that they didn't see this coming.
Was there any truth to that weather alert that went off on Wednesday?
Well, the conspiracy.
The national test?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you could say that because this happened that somehow that correlates to that's true or not true.
It's interesting.
But it hits on the Twitter conspiracy that we all got the cell phone alert, and then conveniently this happens. But if that were so clearly known, wouldn't Israel have woken up a little bit at the border a little bit more? You know, it's insane to me.
It's interesting. Maybe we can dive into it a little deeper, and we can go into it now if you want. But Ben Shapiro actually was completely oblivious to this too, because when they attacked, it was a complete surprise attack. Ben Shapiro was not on. Like, if you guys don't know, Ben Shapiro is extremely Jewish. He practices his faith.
What?
Extremely Jewish.
He practices his faith very openly and is a very predominant Jew. And there was a Jewish holiday this weekend in which they didn't have any electronics, any access to news, and they were practicing their religion. And in which Ben Shapiro's co-founder of Daily Wire was tweeting out like, hey guys, Ben has heard only rumors but has no idea how bad it is and things like that. And it was really interesting to see Ben Shapiro's reaction and to hear different things like that. Because Ben Shapiro gets on and says this is, in his first video coming back from that religious experience, says this is the worst thing that's happened to Jews since the Holocaust, and was unapologetically just like saying, watch this, like, and made all of his viewers watch the horrible things that went on. He's like, I'm not going to censor these for you.
The
like,
atrocities.
You need to watch.
Right.
Because I don't want this to happen again.
But he went off with Tate, I guess?
Yeah, so him and Andrew Tate got into it a little bit. So on October 9th, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, because you might have a little better of a sequence of events, Israel bombed Palestine. That was when Palestine called for a truce.
Palestine. Well, yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yesterday.
Okay.
So yesterday, from what I understand, I could have this mixed up. Israel countered and bombed Palestine, and
The Gaza Strip, Gaza City specifically, different targets throughout. Yes. Okay.
And Gaza was under intense bombing, and basically Palestine's like truce, and Ben Shapiro quote tweeted this. And keep in mind, like, as Kevin said, like, his experience with the Jewish family that his dad was close with, like, they're wonderful people, very nice people, very peaceful people. Ben Shapiro says they can F right off, kind of rejecting Palestine's.
That is to some extent happening, because remember, you have the Palestinian government, and then you have Hamas, which is a political faction within Palestine. And Palestine's two parts, right? So you have the Gaza Strip, which is a very concentrated strip of a coastal city, basically. Gaza City, there are various different cities here. And then you have the West Bank, which is on the west bank of the Jordan River, which is actually to the east, not to be confusing, but they're separated. That's important to know. So tiny strip here, and then larger land here. And the Gaza Strip is really where most of the conflict seems to be focused now. And Israel's goal is to root out Hamas. And so you have the Palestinian government going, whoa, can we at least, like, keep the power on? Can we keep water on? Can we get food aid in? Can we bring support to the Gaza Strip? And Israel's like, nope. And mostly that's because, well, not only are they bombing it, that's just phase one. They've got tanks on, engines on, lights on. It's basically, you have this. Look, think about it this way. Right now, you're playing Age of Empires. You got like 30 different stables built up right outside the enemy's walls, and you're just like spamming make horses, except it's not horses, they're tanks. And you're queuing up your whole army on the edge, and they're going to draw the little proverbial box and go, there. Like, it's good. That's going to be, like, the analogy is funny, but it's not funny because of the amount of people who are going to die.
Yeah.
That is going to be devastating.
But so what's interesting here is Ben Shapiro not saying, like, hey, we should be diplomatic about this. He said they can F right off, basically supporting Israel and their counterstrike on the Gaza Strip. And Andrew Tate, who's usually the alpha male go fight win, called Ben Shapiro out and said, hey, Mr. Tough Guy.
Hey, Christian, you want to throw this on the screen real quick? I have it on my laptop.
Oh, yeah, I want to see
Andrew
it.
Tate responds to Ben Shapiro and says, Mr. Tough Guy, let me assure you, as someone who has done his own fighting, as opposed to excitedly encouraging others to do it for him while sitting at home on a comfy chair, peace is always worth a conversation. And then Andrew Tate, I might have to pull it up. Ben Shapiro then responds back to Andrew Tate and says, let me pull it up here. Let me assure you, as someone who has not pimped women and bragged about it, that morality requires that those who rape women and kidnap children must be eradicated, not negotiated with. So Ben Shapiro is not necessarily separating Palestine and the Hamas. He's kind of putting them together instead of separating them. And he's inciting the war against, supporting the war against Palestine.
And just to clarify too, so the Gaza Strip, that is where Hamas is. Meanwhile, over on the West Bank, that's actually run by PLO, which is a totally separate entity. That's not right now where there's warfare. Otherwise, Jerusalem would be under fire. And as far as I know, it was a nice sunny day yesterday. But this is happening. And just to also give you another perspective, I have this picture, Christian, if you want to throw this up too. This is the San Francisco Bay Area, but with kind of Israel overlaid on top, just to give you a perspective on the size of these things. So when we're talking about the Gaza Strip, that's kind of like just kind of dealing with this area over here, like the Monterey Bay. The East Bay is kind of like, that's where Jerusalem would be right here, where San Jose is. This East Bay is going to be basically your West Bank, and then up to the north over here you have Lebanon. But Israel is roughly the size of the greater San Francisco Bay Area, just kind of for perspective there.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for showing that
That
map.
is really interesting because it's not that big.
So-
It's not.
Yeah.
So, and then Tristan Chait chimes in and says, a Jewish man speaking of eradicating a race of people, 2023 is a scary time to be alive. It seems like they totally flip sides here. You have Ben Shapiro inciting violence, and then you have Andrew Tate trying to calm down Ben Shapiro. In what world did you think that would happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're getting with Ben Shapiro is the idea that you have to eradicate Hamas. Like you mentioned, it's Hamas that's inciting this, and you can't negotiate with terrorists, so to speak. And this is the unfortunate reality is you have Hamas threatening and saying, well, for every bomb you drop, we're going to execute a hostage, or for every hour that your assault goes on, we'll execute a hostage. This is very difficult to negotiate with, and any kind of weakness from Israel will probably just be met with more attacks.
Yeah.
Now, you could say, and they probably will, but Israel should build another wall, a bigger wall. But for now, I don't think anybody saying anything is going to stop Israel from rolling right into Palestine and causing some big ruckus. And guess who's going to pay for all of the, not lives, those are the individuals, the Palestinians and the Israelis, but all the bullets, the guns, and the rockets. We are. That's America. We are paying for that. Every Iron Dome defense rocket that costs 40 to 50 grand, that's an American rocket. We just had our national security advisor say that we will be providing ammunition and interceptors for the Iron Dome, as well as whatever support is necessary to ensure that Israel is able to, now the quote was, defend itself. But I have a feeling all of these defensive armaments are about to turn very
Christian,
aggressive.
Can we go ahead and put Mikey's computer on the screen really quick? So you talked a little bit about Mobileye and how advanced Israel's technology is. So this is, maybe you want to make the video a little bit bigger. This is the Iron Dome.
Yep.
Extremely advanced technology. It's quite literally, if I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, a dome around Israel that protects it from incoming missiles. And you can see that these are missiles incoming, and they're just being lasered out of the air. Like the missiles are having no impact. It's literally just like a bubble around it. The technology is amazing.
Yeah, they're faster rockets that come and intercept these. So, you know, if you have a mortar that you think about it like dropping it into a regular a tube and floop, you know, we like those sort of mortars. You have an algorithm that operates using very sophisticated high-speed radar, and it determines, okay, this is where it's going, this is the trajectory, this is how fast it's going. We can intercept it here or not. And sometimes the Iron Dome chooses not to intercept. It can intercept about 90% of the incoming projectiles. Sometimes they choose not to intercept when it's a misfire anyway. It's going to land in like a bush, and you know it doesn't really matter. Just because it's very expensive. You know, these little mortars are $600 to $800, whereas these interception rockets are 40 to 50K. But then again, America's paying for it.
Is America paying for both sides? Are they paying for the rockets being sent over and the defense of those rockets?
Well, that's an interesting argument. I mean, theoretically, if that $6 billion of Iranian and oil money is slowly seeping back into Iranian hands and then getting sent via crypto transfers over, I guess, you know what? I think what we're doing is just preventing a recession. Just spend money. It's just cyclical spend here. Is this what they mean with a cyclical, like a good? You have bombs on one side and then rockets on the other side. It's terrible.
So one of my biggest fears is obviously what's happening in Ukraine is just terrible. I'm not even getting to the political aspect, but lives are being lost there. It's terrible. Nobody likes to see that. I'm afraid that this is going to get drawn out in the same way where it's just both sides refuse to give up. Do you think there could be a quick resolution, or do you think this is something that we better buckle up for the next 2-3 years until something has to intervene?
I think it'll be a few months. I don't think it'll be years, but it'll certainly be a few months, and Gaza will be probably completely controlled by Israel within a few months. I think you're going to have this will be known as the Israeli occupation of the Gaza Strip. Yeah. You're going to have Israeli soldiers on every street over there, because here's what happens. Once Hamas is gone and out of there and dead, who runs the government there?
Well, tell me if this is a bad analogy. Is Israel doing to Palestine what America did to Afghanistan?
Yeah, well, to some extent, yes.
Taking out the terrorist group and occupying the government.
Yes. And I think what we learned kind of the hard way is there's no way to target just the terrorist group and get the terrorists out. Because in the case of Hamas, for example, they're using Palestinians as meat shields. They're hiding in areas that have like high civilization or high citizen count. And
Kevin was even talking about it, I think yesterday in your video, that the Hamas belief, I don't know if you call it a belief or an extreme, whatever you want to call it, it's so deeply ingrained into Palestine that you don't just take out like 5 people. Like it's a belief. It's a extremism that is found deep within that society. So what do you do? Because as we saw with Afghanistan, as soon as you leave, then the problem resumes again.
Right, because you have a power vacuum. Somebody has to lead the individuals who live there and who have beliefs and don't want to. Because here's the other thing that's going to happen is if Israel leaves, well then, and let's say Israel takes half of the Gaza Strip and it's like, we're just putting walls here. Well, the individuals who used to live in the Gaza Strip and come back, or the people who rebuild, they'd be like, well, I'm pissed. I want my land back. And we go right back to square one. I wish we could see peace in the Middle East. I do want to talk about Saudi Arabia. Let's talk about the Saudi Arabia deal and oil here, because could the Saudi Arabia deal get derailed by this, or could this be the start of peace in the Middle East? What's your take?
Yeah, it's totally possible it gets derailed from this. I'm optimistic about it. So basically the context here being end of July, early August, the Biden administration started peace talks, actually negotiating peace talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia, who Saudi Arabia have never acknowledged the existence of Israel ever since its inception, right? They just refuse to acknowledge that it exists. So while the specific details of the deal are still kind of unknown, there are a couple of things that we do know, and that includes things like the deal including Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel for the first time, but in return wanting some sort of protection from the United States, especially from Iran, and that would be something in the form of something similar to like a mutual defense pact, basically, where if Saudi Arabia gets attacked by Iran, then the United States would take that as if it was an attack on our own soil. This would also include a sale of sophisticated weapons to Saudi Arabia, and Israel's bit is that they're going to help Saudi Arabia grow their economy from beyond just oil, because Israel has advanced, quite a few different places. Think the U.S. hope for this, besides the political implications of that'll look good for Biden, I think U.S.'s hope for this is that it's going to weaken China's influence in the area, because if you go back to April of this year, China had actually brokered a deal, or mediated rather an agreement with Saudi Arabia and Iran. And so historically, we know, the United States is the country that goes through and settles things and mediates these sorts of deals. But
Exactly.
now China's coming in and doing that. And so we're worried that their influence is going to spread over there too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. That was a big moment, and that actually gave a lot of credence to these fears about BRICS, the replacing of the U.S. dollar. The end of the dollar will come. Why? Because China is coming to negotiate as the world power now. China would love nothing more than that. Their economy is just too weak. And unfortunately, they made their economy even worse with this real estate bubble they put all their citizens and consumers through. Finally, LVMH, by the way, is complaining about lackluster luxury goods sales, fewer Tiffany handbags, Louis Vuitton handbags, and Tiffany wedding rings and jewelry. Diamond values are plummeting, apparently, as luxury goods sales are finally in decline. China, a big part of that. People are so fearful in China now. They're really holding onto their purse a little tighter. So, but going on to Saudi Arabia here. So, do we think? I mean, there's this idea that maybe this deal will go on pause now because of a full-scale war by Israel versus Palestinian militants, and there is a risk, obviously, to this deal derailing. Personally, I don't think it would be very smart for Saudi Arabia to just throw up their hands and pick a side here. I think the best thing, probably what you're going to see, is a lot of the countries around are just going to wait and see. They'll let the dust settle, so to speak. What do you guys think? I mean, I usually think, when two people are fighting and they're throwing punches at each other, you kind of you either have a choice. You're either going to fully break it up or you're just going to sit on the sidelines.
I think you're right on point. So there was an NBC News article that I was reading today that was going over, basically, former U.S. military intelligence was saying that the timing of this attack from Hamas was specifically to try to make the deal go downhill from happening. And I'll pull up a tweet here in just a second.
Yeah.
But while I do that, so the U.S. had basically just announced the other day that the basic framework of the deal was set, and then coincidentally, just a few days later, Hamas ends up attacking. So what we're worried is we're going to see a lot more pro-Palestinian sentiment happening in Saudi Arabia, and then that could influence the people of Saudi Arabia, basically.
I guess the good news is the details of the deal aren't out yet, though.
Correct.
So that is good, because then you can say, hey, because of what's happened, this is what we've negotiated. Meanwhile, that's what they negotiated anyway.
But Christian, could you pull this up on the screen? So this is a statement from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and their public statement on this calls for an immediate halt to the escalation between the two sides, which, that makes sense. Yeah. But they mention the kingdom recalls its repeated warnings of the dangers of the explosion in the situation as a result of the continuing occupation, the deprivation of Palestinian people of their legitimate rights, and the repetition of systematic provocations against its, I can't read this, it's so small, Sansities.
Yeah, maybe command plus sign. There we go.
There we go. I was trying to figure out the zoom.
Yeah.
So the take on this, it seems on the surface that this is probably a more pro-Palestinian approach, but I think that really what they're doing is kind of a CYA here. Like when you're in the middle of this area and you have all these other Middle Eastern countries that are predominantly Muslim who are going to take a side, you don't want to suddenly jump ship and be like, screw you guys, we're with Israel. Like, that's not a smart move either. So that's why I think you're right on the money when you say that they're kind of waiting for the dust to settle, but in the meantime, they have to kind of cover their butts.
And this is going to take a while to settle. It's terrible, but I think it's going to take a while to settle. So it probably did. Maybe if it didn't kill the deal, it probably delayed it.
It might, because neither one of them have officially, neither Israel nor Saudi Arabia have made public statements regarding the deal since the attack happened.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's going on hold. Yeah, for sure. It looks like the USS Carrier Strike Group, Gerald R. Ford, has officially arrived in the region as of 16 minutes ago. What a slow ship. You think like to put the boosters on or something, like get there a little quicker, okay? All this happened Saturday morning, and it's Tuesday. Tuesday. What is this? Like, if like, let's say your house is getting raided, okay? You got like really big thick walls, and then you call 911 and you're like, yo, I need some help. And we'll be there in 4 days.
Well, to kind of put a hole in that, we're not going to help. We're going to support. Like,
that's the point.
The news of it going was probably enough. Like, they're not going to see the aircraft carrier. They may, I don't know. Question is, does the Palestinian government have its own state-sponsored military?
Well, you have the factions that have their own military arms. The government itself has had trouble, I think, funding its own military. It would be very interesting to get the details on the state of their actual ability, because you have these two different regions, the West Bank and again the Gaza Strip, and they've been at war with Israel so many times, so they must. But I don't know if you've at any point had any kind of de-arming. That is an interesting question. So certainly at some point they would have. We have a national securities force, but I wonder how large that is right now. That's the NSF, they call it, by the way, the National Securities Force. So I wonder how many units they have. So there's not much about them. So we'll take a look at that. And you've got the PLA, the Liberation Army. Let's see how many units they have here. See, 6,000. That's what I was thinking, is if they had something, it'd be tiny. 6,000. I mean, think about it. You've got 4.5 million people in Palestine. 6,000 troops. I mean, more than 6,000 people are probably dead already in the region here. So it's hard to say that you've got a real standing army when you have a 6,000 person armed wing. I mean, here it talks about this being like an auxiliary formation. That sure, you have brigades in Gaza and otherwise, but they're they spawned out of really the Soviet Union era, and many say they've been whittled down since the Yom Kippur War, as well as the Syrian civil war. So we'll see. Yeah, but. I mean, I think the last thing they want to do is fight Israel directly, because remember, this is Hamas. This is Hamas v. Israel. That's
what I was thinking. Like, could he get to the point where Palestine's like, all right, that's enough. Like, we're going to send in our troops, but it's like, there's 6,000.
No, it's not happening.
And they don't have, I don't even think they have the GDP to support that.
And I would guess they're in the West Bank too, like you were saying earlier.
That's what I was going to say too. And having, like, first off, when you have the country basically split in half, Palestine, you have Gaza and you have the West Bank, and troops can't get in between because obviously Israel's not going to allow those troops to just kind of waltz through. And it's two different entities that are controlling different parts. So the PLO kind of being in charge of the West Bank, and then you have Hamas that's basically running the Gaza Strip right now. Yeah. So, and then on top of that, you've got, as far as I know, Egypt has closed borders with them too. So even when Israel was like, hey, run, we're gonna bomb the crud out of you, it's like, well, where do they go? Like, thanks for the heads up, but where can they go? Swim into the ocean?
Yeah, well, that, and consider, if the PLA is 6,000, Israel is mobilizing 300,000 reservists.
Yeah,
300,000. That's 50x. That's insane. 50x. I mean, boy, that's like half of Ventura County. Just everywhere.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah. So we kind of talked about the conflict, what's up to date with it. We kind of talked about Biden's response and a little bit of an underwhelming climax to what we were hoping would be a show of force. I don't even know if we want a show of force, but he just said, like, don't.
Oh, from Biden, yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick regarding to that one? So Biden did, obviously, he condemned Hamas, and he mentioned that we're going to give support to Israel, and we're stock the Iron Dome. But he didn't specifically mention anything about the ground incursion that Israel is planning on Gaza.
Yes.
So I was curious, Kevin, what your take on that was, why he intentionally left it out, and what America's official stance would be on that.
Yeah, I think it's hard for Biden to come out here and say, go flatten Palestine, even though we know that's probably and unfortunately going to be what happens is this Israeli occupation of this region. Then we'll have a power vacuum, we'll have a power struggle, it'll be a disaster, it'll be Afghanistan or Iraq all over again. But I think Biden here it made it very clear we will make sure that Israel does not run out of weapons for defense. Well, Israel's just going to go, this attack is for our defense. It's the Nikki Haley. It's just a strategic incursion into Mexico to make sure they don't come here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. So we talked about the conflict, talked about the current president. Can we go ahead and talk about the former president's response to it?
Let's hear it.
His predictions. All right, Mikey, do you want to go ahead and pull up that small little video? We can play.
He was so quiet. I don't remember this former president, who I feel like he was never on TV or on social media.
No, not at all. So, yes, that one. So there's this montage going around of Republicans basically telling the Democratic Party, don't send money to Iran. Don't do this. And I just want to kind of, it's a 3-minute clip. Can we watch it and get our reactions to it?
We're going to be released for nothing in exchange.
Didn't they also get 5 Iranians?
They will get 5 Iranians as well. Yeah, Jackie.
Then we need to add $6 billion on top of that.
This is the deal that we were able to strike.
Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East, putting Israel, the United States, and the entire world.
Yeah,
Hold on, we got the Iron Dome video in the background.
Playing the Iron Dome in the back. Let me.
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
I thought
I actually liked it. I thought it added to it. I'm like,
too.
wow, Trump, you've really gone like with the sound effects
Christian,
here.
are you
right?
his video editor? What's going on?
After I noticed the pattern repeating, I'm like, hold on a second, something's running in the back. All right.
Putting Israel, the United States, and the entire world in very grave peril.
Joe Biden just lit a match to the Middle East. Israel has got to be on alert.
The news that the deal is moving forward is drawing criticism from both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill.
The way to avoid having hostages taken by Iran is to be strong, firm, and resolute, and to not use carrots in the form of $6 billion, but to use sticks in the form of threats to things that Iran holds dear.
$6 billion they want released, and they're going to assure us they're going to use it for humanitarian aid. There's no guarantees of that. So I'm very much concerned about this. So we're looking into it much deeper, but I'm very concerned.
Do you have concern that money is fungible?
There is obviously money is fungible.
The administration says this is limited to humanitarian aid, but they also acknowledge that funds are fungible, which means they can move them around and will aid them in being able to do other things. So people are very concerned.
It seems, very clear to the critics on both sides on the Hill that money is fungible. That's the criticism. Right. And now President Raisi has added fuel to the fire that already existed of criticism by saying we're going to do anything we want with it.
But isn't it true that this frees Tehran up to spend more on other nefarious goals, like supporting terrorism and boosting its nuclear program?
Yes. And it's, I can't predict what they'll do going forward here.
As Nancy explained to you, money's fungible. Right. And so any financial relief can be used by the regime in another way. And that's why there is real controversy to this.
It's fungible. You couple that with the president of Iran saying, I'm going to use the money however I want to. Where's that going to go? It's going to go into terror proxies. This will go into more terror operations where they try to kill Americans. They kill, Israelis.
Money's fungible. This money is going to the Iran regime. It's a terrorist regime. It's the largest state sponsor of terrorism, and it's going to kill a lot of people, unfortunately.
Money is fungible, right? And so the Iranians will be able to use other funds for their illicit activities. We know they support terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas.
Money is absolutely fungible. So just because they can't use those exact dollars for the purpose they've laid out doesn't mean that they can't change their budgets on other parts of their humanitarian aid so that they're able to redirect that to areas where they can't use that money. Money is by definition fungible. And the other thing is this is absolutely a ransom payment.
Exiled son of Iran's last Shah calling history the best guide.
We saw what happened to the money that was released to the Iranian regime under the Obama administration. It went to further finance the regime's proxies in Syria and Lebanon.
Even though the administration claims these funds are limited to humanitarian transactions, we all know that transactions are difficult to monitor.
So there's the deal.
Iran's president, on the other hand, understands that money is fungible. Tehran continues to funnel resources to terrorist proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza that attack Israel.
Money is fungible, so Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas.
So holy cow, that's kind of it's kind of a multifold kind of topic. Here.
All I heard was money is fungible.
So I have not seen this video, by the way. When I made that comment,
take a shot every time the word fungible was mentioned.
A lot of people in the comments don't know what fungible is. Do you want to give a 10-second definition what fungible means?
Yeah. So basically, think of fungible as basically meaning the same. You can't tell the difference between $1 here or $1 there. There's absolutely no difference between a $20 bill here or a $20 bill here. And so if, let's say, you have, $20 of bills in this hand, okay? And this hand is $20 of bills for terrorism. And you're like, I need to go make $20. And so you go get a job or whatever. And somebody's like, here, I'm going to pay you $20, but you can't spend this new $20 on terrorism because terrorism's bad. And you're like, oh, okay, I won't use this new $20 on terrorism. I'll use this $20 on terrorism, and then I'll just repay myself. That's basically what they mean with fungible.
So, like, you and I talked a little bit about this weekend. Did Biden just completely nuke his chance at being elected again?
This I hate to say it will probably be resolved and not in headlines come election cycle. It's too far away.
This is just like a scar for Trump to poke at the whole time, though.
It's totally. So is Afghanistan. So is inflation. So is the economy. And not all of those things are 100% Biden's fault, but these are things that people are going to remember as being salient points during the Biden administration, and those will dictate how people vote. But you have to remember there are a lot of never Trumpers in this country. There are a lot of them. And so the question is, will there be, 84 million never Trumpers or 82 million never Trumpers this
We
election?
actually saw an interesting announcement. RFK is now running as an independent.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is he was getting no attention as a Democrat because that's how the Democratic Party works. And so it was smart for him to drop out and be a Democrat because, quite frankly, he would never get attention anyway. But now, drop out from as being a Democrat to become an independent. But now he's basically guaranteed he will not get elected, but that was already the case as a Democrat. What he really should have done is switched to be a Republican and seen if that would have given him enough of a swing.
Been crazy.
Because if he just came out and said, look, that and again, I want to be clear about this. This is just a hypothetical here. If he just came out and said the Democratic Party is so corrupt, I'm joining Trump and I'm joining the Republicans because you know what? All of them are right. The Democrats are broken or whatever. And here's how my vision is better than every other Republican's. He'd actually have a chance. Okay, maybe not a great chance. He'd probably still be polling around 5 to 8%, like the Vivek or a Pence or whatever. You're not getting up to Trump level.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Tough.
So don't run against Democrats as a Democrat. How did you learn that lesson?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no kidding, huh? Nothing having to do with California running for governor. But
we saw a headline this morning talking about the assets given to Iran can still be frozen. Why haven't we frozen them?
Yeah.
Do you think we will end up freezing it like a sanction almost?
Good question. Well, so the assets could be refrozen. They were frozen. They could be refrozen. In fact, Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, I have my notes here from the press conference when he was asked multiple times about freezing those assets again. He answered 3 times saying, not a dollar has been used yet from that $6 billion or whatever. And then he was asked again, but can it be refrozen? And he said, it could be. And so,
could it be a sanction of sort?
Well, it was. So it would just be re-sanctioning.
Yeah.
It'd be like just all right, deals off the table. But I did think, obviously it's a propaganda video. The Trump piece right here. It's stitching together clips to make the Biden administration look terrible and the Trump administration look great, which Republicans are going to love and Democrats are going to hate, right? But we know that. But let's look past all of that. There are 2 very interesting things here. Number one, Mitch didn't glitch during it.
I saw that. There was a cut in the middle.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, there was
Okay, interesting. All right, good catch. And then number 2, I liked what Senator Tom Cotton said, and it has to do with the carrot versus the stick approach. And it was what I was talking about earlier with this. How do you deal with state sponsors of terrorism? If you sweeten the deal so much, we get 5 people, we get 6 people. I think it was. I think we got 5. They got 5 or 6. 5 and 6 was the number. I don't remember who got which. I think we got 5 and they got 6, but they also got $6 billion, something like that. But the question is, does that create moral hazard? Does that potentially say to Iran, we need to kidnap more people? And actually, think about how many hundreds of people just got kidnapped by Hamas.
Well,
send some of those over.
How many hostages do they have now?
That's
for the United
kidnapping,
States?
exactly. So now, send those people to Iran. We're going to need another 6 billion. Actually, 1 billion per person. Well, how many people can we go abduct then? I mean, that's a good business. I hate to say it, but that's the moral hazard you create with $6 billion here. And the big thing to remember about that video that they didn't say, but and so it's not obvious to everybody, but the Biden administration negotiated the $6 billion deal without Congress. That's why you have Senator Joe Manchin, who's basically a Republican, but I mean, he's the in the middle guy, right? He's the guy that, sandbagged a lot of deals that the Democrats were trying to shove through when they had full control in the first 2 years of Biden's administration. But Joe Manchin, I wrote down what he said. He goes, humanitarian, I'm very concerned. There's no way we'll be able to guarantee that. He had a very good line there. That's a great clip. You don't even need much more context to know. I mean, he could be like, all right, it's up to the admin or whatever. But still, that clip alone says it is true to be a concern.
So probably, Biden probably passed that because he knew it wouldn't get passed in Congress. And he was trying to be a hero to get those Americans back because...
You think Biden was in the negotiating room? I think Lockheed Martin was.
Yeah, stocks up 4%. Yeah,
I know. It's jaded to think that, but you know what? The more and more this goes on, it's just like war is really profitable.
Yeah, the people, the civilians lose and the arms manufacturers end up winning every time.
Think about, these companies are massive companies. If there was no war, if everything was, everyone was a democracy, they'd go bankrupt. Which is crazy. Lockheed Martin stock. Let's see what their market cap is. This is a company that is $109 billion company. The stock's actually down 8% year to date. And had it not been for the Israeli invasion, the stock would have been down 16.7%. So, now up a nice little 8%.
Maybe this is a little bit jaded of me.
That's where the $6 billion is. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Let's hear the jade.
I might be a little bit jaded on this, but Zelensky popped in this morning. He's like, yeah.
He always does. He hears money and he pops up.
Of course, Russia would want to trigger a war in the Middle East to undermine the world unity. He's still managing to make it about Ukraine, which is his job.
That's his job.
That's his job.
That's his job. I mean, it's like I joke, I take my wallet out at the restaurant and Zelensky's face pops out. He's like a bobblehead. He's freaking everywhere. It doesn't say tip on receipts anymore. It says Zelensky.
The Zelensky.
20% to the guy.
Oh gosh.
The Z guy. Anyway, no. I mean, look, what's happening in Ukraine is obviously devastating. It's a disaster, but it's gone on so long now that it's just become frustrating for Americans who originally coalesced behind Ukraine, and then it became, okay, this is ridiculous. This is taking too long. It's too much money, too much spending. Now, the Democratic argument here is, well, we've helped Ukraine take back 80% of the land that they've lost. We've also weakened Russia. We've also weakened and now eliminated the Wagner Group. I mean, so in fairness, you have to look at the Dems' argument here, and when you look at the Dem side, you go, well, no more Wagner Group, weak Russia. Now China, guess who's buddies with China? Russia. Now China gets another, thorn in their side because they're trading buddies doing stupid crap. So when China looks around at the world and says to the U.S., well, we don't like your sanctions and all of our friends are going to boycott you, the U.S. is going to go, which friends? Really, there is an argument about destabilizing Russia, but there's also an argument about destabilizing Iran, and that's where I'm wondering, why are we not being more aggressive here with Iran?
Who's a bigger threat, Russia or Iran?
Well, it depends.
To the United States.
Iran is a cause for instability in the Middle East, but that hasn't really affected oil prices that much. You had on your sheet here, oil prices initially jumped 4%, but they basically immediately started declining. They declined over the last couple days. I think oil markets have realized that a lot of this in the Middle East, these regional conflicts don't end up affecting oil that much. But Russia is probably the greater threat of World War III because they are a substantially larger economy, and they're much more powerful. They have as many nuclear warheads as we do. Now, half of them probably don't work, but...
That's generous. That's very generous.
You're probably right about that. But Iran's like, can we have one? Like they've got their enrichment facilities. I mean, that's what Top Gun was all about. And it's like, oh, we got to somehow go through the ravine, right, and then come up into the dome, launch the rocket into the facility, and then dip out of there. That whole scene is around getting a rocket into a nuclear enriching facility, and so this is. America's still trying to keep their foot on Iran, as they should, but Russia's actually got the nukes. So, yeah, Russia's big threat.
I have another idea that's kind of been floating around Twitter. We'll call it an idea.
Oh, no.
So I just saw a headline pass through on the news up there that says, hey, people are fearing that the United States borders, like we've talked the last week, that the borders are so wide open for the United States, or at least the media is making it seem that way, that people are almost unquestionably passing through. Is there a potential that the United States might be putting itself at risk by doing that to a terrorist group or to insiders? Maybe they're from Iran or from a different terrorist community that may be able to infiltrate the United States from the inside.
You mean from the southern border?
Borders? Yeah, the southern border. Sure.
Sure. I mean, well, that's like you said, it's an idea that's been circulating. That is it possible that you could get Hamas soldiers who come through like the southern border or whatever, and through Mexico or whatever, and create splinter cells, what they call them in the United States.
Somebody told me that that's how 9/11 was, wasn't it? Those terrorists learned how to fly the planes and were able to get to that position by being in the United States for so long. You can fact check me on that. I don't know how long they were in the United States, but it seems like you wouldn't want to fight the United States from the outside in. If you wanted to fight the United States, you'd do it from the inside out, and you do it at very key points.
It's tough because America is also. I mean, don't get me wrong, America's not perfect, but America's pretty sussed out. Like you got a lot of you go into neighborhoods and people are like, "Who are you?" And I'm not. This isn't to say that people are not able to camouflage and blend in, but I feel like, and maybe I don't know, but I just feel like in America people are like, see something, say something. That guy's sus. Whatever. And hopefully that's how with law enforcement in America we can minimize that sort of stuff. But guaranteed, it still happens. It still does happen. It still will happen. But hopefully less of concern than an outright war with a country like Russia, which is more realistic. Which what we're doing is fighting a proxy war.
Yeah,
it's all we're doing right now. It's Israeli lives fighting known terrorist group Hamas using American bullets and guns. Oh, where have we seen this story before? It's Ukrainian lives using American bullets and guns.
Yeah. Or Vietnam or Korea.
Oh,
or just. There's a long list. I have a question for you regarding this. So we've got Russia and Ukraine going at it right now, and now we've got Hamas going against Israel. And in both of these cases, the United States is spending money and kind of, I don't want to say we're stretching our military thin, but we're in two places at once. Yeah. Do you think China would see this as an opportunity to possibly attack Taiwan?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't think so. I think China has screwed up so badly. The way they take Taiwan and turn it into like a Hong Kong, which I don't actually think they want to obliterate Taiwan. I think they want to control Taiwan. And they want to have their government basically there and their principles. And so the way they could do that is they turn it into a Macau or a Hong Kong, like an autonomous region or whatever. But China has to do that from a position of strength, and they are in a position of weakness now. Their economy, GDP, heading the estimates substantially lower than the 5% everybody thought they were going to get. They might be like 2.5%. You've got a real estate bubble that's continuing to collapse. You've got a consumer in China that's scarred, that says, why would I bother spending money in China? I think we had the Tesla sales, right? Tesla sales in China down 10.9% year over year. Oh, you know what I have to say to all the people who buy Tesla stock and actually care about the Chinese numbers? Sell. Just sell the stock. Because if you buy Tesla stock because you think the Chinese are going to buy all the Teslas, you're not fundamentally understanding why Tesla exists in China. You don't understand that China is the largest export market. We don't need Chinese individuals buying these cars. Does that help? Yes. Can we rely on the Chinese economy for that now? No, but at the same time, because that economy is so weak, I think it actually weakens the case for a Chinese invasion into Taiwan.
We touched on a little bit earlier. Was the United States just as surprised than Israel? Like, was the United States just as surprised as Israel about this attack?
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, because my thing is, if the United States knew, Israel would have known. Almost guarantee.
Well, it's weird because like the Prigozhin thing, because there was an alert to get
They
out
knew
of
that.
There was
They
an
knew
alert
that.
to get out.
Sure.
So I wonder if we can see, was there any travel alerts around Israel? Like, hey,
There was nothing. I've looked at like everything I could have possibly, and you don't even have to look at all of those signs. You have to look at the border. The border wasn't manned. There's nobody there. They were basically able to walk in. They dropped, they flew drones over the towers. So this is what they did. You had like a prison fence and then little towers every about 500 meters. So 1,500 feet. You know, that's like 15 football fields. That's quite a bit apart. You can't even really tell what's going on in the other one until they, catch fire. And then it's like, is that a signal? But they're so far apart. What they did is they took drones, dropped bombs on the towers to disrupt the antenna and the signals. Now all of a sudden they can't tell anything. At the same time, you plant bombs on the fence and you take a bulldozer, bulldoze it open, and all of a sudden you got the paragliders and the quadcopters or the motorbikes and the rockets and everything coming in at the same time on a Saturday morning on a holiday weekend. There's no freaking way they knew, because let me put it this way. If they knew and that's how they protected the border, then that's even more embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. There's obviously a lot of comparisons being made to this being their 9/11. And I think in some ways it's actually truer than they're even acknowledging. But the difference is with 9/11, we didn't know, when or where or who, but we knew something was going to happen. And so that's maybe as time goes on, the narrative will change and we'll learn a little bit more. But I don't think they had any idea, neither did we, that this was going to happen this weekend.
Yeah, yep, totally agree. The what else do we have? We got some more here, I think. We've got X getting in trouble from the EU. Let's touch on that. While Mikey pulls that up, I just want to quickly remind you to check out the Noob vs. Pro courses. The price goes up on Friday. They're brand new. They're going to be recorded here in the studio. We'll pull the black screen back. We got our beautiful blackboard that we use over here. It's really good for teaching. Brand new content. All of the amazing insights into how I run all of the different businesses that I do. How we pay for the beautiful, delicious plane that I pay for myself. It's my plane, baby. Nobody else gets to tell me what to do with it. And by the way, if you're that, I saw some comments here about the full stack developer position. If you're a full stack developer willing to relocate, even if you just want to hear what the opportunity is, throw in your resume. Send us a 2-minute video. Send it to jobs@meetkevin.com. We're looking for a full stack, front end, back end app developer. We're going to do something pretty big. We want to basically bankrupt BlackRock. And start small, right?
Noble cause.
Noble cause. Very noble cause.
That was the first thing. I was at one of our property locations, and obviously you're doing work outside and everything. One of the neighbors came up to me and said, "Please tell me you're not with BlackRock." I'm like, no.
Would you please tell me you're not with BlackRock?
Yeah,
wow.
She's like, you guys are doing such a great, before she said this, she said she came up to me and said, "Please tell me you're not with BlackRock." Okay, good, because you're doing such a good job on this house. She was very grateful that we were taking such good care of the neighborhood. Because HouseHack only buys in great neighborhoods. Yeah. And so we were taking this ugly house that had been run down. I think the owners passed away in the house. The house was left in terrible condition. Yeah, terrible condition. And here we are making it a beautiful house. And I had I think I told you, 3 neighbors came up to me individually and shook my hand in the streets, thanking us. Yeah. But the first one cracked me up. She leaned over, looked around. "Please tell me you're not with BlackRock." It was so funny.
That's actually, that is funny. So that's a good pitch there for HouseHack, by the way. Go to househack.com. We're going to get to this Twitter Elon Musk disaster. I've got some choice words for Elon, by the way, and I'm going to tell you those words right after I say. Oh yeah. Go to househack.com, read the offering circular, but the offering minimum is $5,000. So if you got $5,000 you want to put into venture capital investment, yes, there's risk with venture capital, but I run the company. It's a fantastic company, and I'm very, very optimistic about it. So learn more at househack.com. Okay, tell me about Elon, and then I'll give you my choice words about Elon Musk and him being a complete dumbass. But go ahead.
Spoiler alerts. All right, Christian, could you throw this on the screen? He got this letter from the European Commission over here. "Dear Mr. Musk, following the terrorist attacks carried out by Hamas against Israel, we have indications that your platform is being used to disseminate illegal content and disinformation in the EU." Then they go off to talk about the Digital Services Act and how he has certain obligations that he has to withhold. So they said first, they have 3 things over here listed. First, you need to be very transparent, Very transparent and clear on what content is permitted under your terms and consistently and diligently enforce your own policies. This being particularly relevant when it comes to violent and terrorist content that appears to circulate your platform. Second, you receive notices. Well, when you receive notices of illegal content in the EU, you must timely, diligent, and Elon's not really timely or diligent with things, but be objective in taking action and removing the relevant content when warranted. Third, you need have in place proportionate and effective mitigation measures to tackle the risk to public security and civic discourse stemming from disinformation.
Yep. So here's what Elon needs to do, okay? Because he's going to get this from all angles. Let's make this very simple, okay? Elon, you're being a freaking knucklehead. You bought the damn platform and you said you would label shit. So pick up your little pants and start doing your job, okay? Here's all you have to do. It's not that goddamn hard. Number one, put dates on when people created their accounts. There should be a little banner that if somebody's talking about Israel or Palestine, was that account created within a week of the conflict? There should be a giant-ass banner that's like brand new account, red flag, could be a disinformation troll, whatever, right? Not only that, but I'm so sick and tired of this, okay? So that's number one. Number two, when there's a video that gets community noted of a video game character shooting down a helicopter, and it says Hamas shooting down Israeli helicopter or whatever, or vice versa, whatever, right? And it's a video game, but it looks real. People are like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, that's happening. It's a giant missile shooting down. Anyway, so when one of the videos gets tagged with a community note that said, this is a video game, anytime that video shows up, it should automatically be tagged again. Why do the poor people trying to help Twitter in the community notes division, why do they have to go around to all 10,000 of the times this crap was shared? Elon, like, I know you fired 80% of your staff, okay? I know you did. And I know you're struggling because the money's a little tight, okay? Everybody is. It's a tough economy, and you dumped a lot of Tesla stock on us. But listen, man, put your pants on and fix this crap. Now, nobody is a fan of censorship. We're talking about labels. Just give us labels. Or if we talk about Israel-Palestine, give a counterbalancing argument in it. Jeez, I don't know. What am I missing here? But I just feel like, he's spending too much time playing Diablo when there's freaking people dying. And then you have disinformation going. It pisses me off. I like to play video games too. But if I were running video games, I'd take a damn week off of Rust and I'd go fix my website. I don't know.
That was a very passionate rant, and you've never been this sexy to me.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, we're going to have to end now.
I agree.
I got to go to the bathroom.
I agree with everything that you said. Honestly, it shouldn't be that hard. It would go a long way. And I do want to give props to Community Notes because I feel like it's the only social media platform that actually has that.
That is great. I do like that. Yeah.
There's two things I wanna get into. Number one is a quick question. What are your thoughts on anytime something gets like a Community Notes strike? Any funds that tweet gets, any income, any revenue goes to funding Community Notes instead.
100%, because absolutely, it should. If your tweet requires a community note, it should be demonetized. It's that simple, because you should be incentivized. That'll be number 3. Thank you for that. You should be incentivized to post quality but factual information, because what doesn't do well on Twitter is quality factual information. It's usually unfactual clickbait that does really well on Twitter. And it's so like viral and shareable, and it just makes people pissed off. The people who sit on Twitter all day long, they're just like mad. Not all of them, obviously. There are good people who use Twitter, don't get me wrong, but there's so much anger on the platform. Like Bill Ackman's nice tweets never go anywhere, but his angry tweets, they're everywhere. In fact, we should just clip out this angry portion and put it on Twitter. It'll do great.
Yeah.
That's true.
So Bill Ackman had an interesting tweet. I know you talked about this weekend, so we don't need to rehash it. Is he making a run for president? Is he setting himself up?
I don't think so. I think Bill Ackman's a little bit of I don't know.
You don't think so? Not at all?
I don't really respect him that much. I maybe I shouldn't say anything. I guess I'm just scarred because I know that I'm scarred because of COVID. Because the guy has, weak puts, as in like weekly puts or very short-term put options. And he's like, oh, well, I'm net long. That's fine. But when the market tanks on weekly puts, you make billions of dollars fast. Everybody knows that game. So he's able to lie to people's faces going, well, I'm net long. I'm more long than I am short. Bro, you're playing weeklies. You know your longs are going to be okay and your weeklies are going to print. Okay? And so when you go on CNBC and cry foul that we need to lock everything down for 30 days, shut everything down, pay everybody to just do nothing, just stay inside for 30 days. Come on, man. Based on what research, what evidence? And so every time I read his stuff now, I go, what are his positions? There's like a lack of trust now. Like, I would sit down with him in an interview and I would blunt, like, let's clear the air here. Because maybe I shouldn't be that upset. Like, maybe he's a good guy. I think Jamie Dimon would be a better president. And not a lot of people like Jamie Dimon, but I think more people like Jamie than they like Bill Ackman. I could be wrong about that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
The other thing is, obviously, X gets a lot of criticism for misinformation, but it's worth noting, too, a lot of, like, on current events, but a lot of current events are actually happening on X. Christian, could you actually throw this on the screen? This is a tweet from the basically the supreme leader of Iran, and this is in response to the Hamas attacks, and it's got a response from Israel.
Wait. So Khamenei says, head of the Zionist regime and their backers should know that their massacre and mass murder of people of Gaza will cause a larger calamity to come upon them. That's not great, okay? First of all, I don't like things when things come upon me. Like this is not great. This is it's kind of a threat. You know, it's a threat. Absolutely. And this is the kind of stuff that Donald Trump just eats up. Like, he'd take this and be like, "What are you gonna do, bitch?" like, I do love that about Trump. Is like, who would you rather, to some extent, want to go fight for you? Trump or Biden, right? Like, and I think that's why people like Trump. And I know a lot of people hate Trump. Don't get me wrong, because it's like, well, is it presidential and this, that, or whatever? But like, if there was like a boxing match, who would you rather have
that one's
fighting
easy
for you, right?
But maybe Trump runs this Israel account, because look at the response.
Oh, yeah. Let's see the reply. Okay. It's easy to be brave when you're hiding behind a keyboard. You and your Hamas friends will regret your barbaric actions very soon. Wow, that's awesome. See, I do like that kind of posting on Twitter. Like, this is entertaining. That's actually pretty good. And people get mad at me when I say Twitter, but I think that was also a stupid mistake, changing it to X.
Yeah, that was weird.
I know he's got this whole idea of like, oh, we'll separate from the past and the ills of the past, and you know, this is his whole like domain, the finance app, and all of that. I know he has all these ideas, but the verb to tweet is so valuable. And now what? To X? What? You got to go poo? What? No. To post on what? On YouTube? On Facebook? On Instagram? On TikTok? On WhatsApp? Where are you to post? Twitter. Oh, to tweet. You know, it's
and
like
the logo too. The bird was iconic, and now I see it. I'm like, is this like an adult content website? Like, it doesn't look like it's Twitter.
That's a good point. That is yeah. I liked when it first came out, the people going, my wife's very upset because of the notification. $19 to X.com or $12 or whatever it is. $69.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay. Anything else?
Do you want to end on the Cybertruck?
Let's end on the Cybertruck.
No.
So, kind of more positive news. At least, unless you're a Tesla bear, then this is like horrible news.
Can I interrupt you for one second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to remind you guys, I have a $100 bet with this guy right here. $100 is on the line for 500 Cybertrucks produced by the end of the year. I think we can do it.
I don't think $100 are on the line. I think $100 are probably already in my pocket from that. It's not happening.
Not
There's
true.
no way.
$100.
500, bro.
Right
you got 80 days. 80 days to deliver 500. Let's just divide that out for a moment and start making you sweat a little bit, okay? 500 divided by 80, that's 6.2 a day. Well, this event hasn't even been announced yet. I don't think the event can get announced within a 3-week time frame. Let's be generous. Let's say the event will happen November 3rd. Okay, November 3rd will bring you down to 57-ish days, including the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So realistically, you're down to about 50 days.
How do you know they produce zero?
10 deliveries a day. I'm not saying they've produced zero, and they probably produced like 10. But I'm just saying they got to get 10 a day delivered starting the beginning of November. After an event. I mean, maybe. I know 10 doesn't sound like a lot, but I don't see it.
Are you sweating?
No, I'm actually more excited.
Is this the Don't Sweat It podcast? I'm going to be on that. I think Andre's posting it next week or something like that. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. It should be coming, right? That next episode.
Okay, sorry. Continue. Sorry. I got excited
what you
about the
actually
Cybertruck.
reminded me of is you guys were also discussing the auction for the Cybertruck.
Yes.
That sold. Guess how much?
400,000, dude.
400,000.
What a missed opportunity
what
for
happened?
420.
Did they drive it off the lot or not? Because we were debating about that.
No, that's why
I
I'm
told you they wouldn't drive it off the lot.
I know, that's lame. I'm like, and people are like, oh, well, they're gonna put it in like a dealership showroom or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like a clickbait to get people to go there or whatever. I'm like, man, missed opportunity. But that was interesting. So, all right, what's this Cybertruck news, Mikey?
Yeah, so they were testing them out in Baja California, which for people out of state, basically, it's the part of California that looks like it should be California, but it's actually Mexico. All the way down, they drove it all the way down to Cabo.
The appendix down there.
Yes, the appendix of California. They drove 2 Cybertrucks down there, off-roaded them the whole way. I use off-road kind of loosely. It wasn't on roads, it was off the road, but it wasn't anything, intense. They didn't go like rock crawling or anything like that. They did get a couple of flat tires, but they're still considering it a success. The trucks were completely stock outside of, they had like harnesses and kind of different seats for comfort, but everything about the truck was absolutely stock. And they used public Tesla chargers to get all the way down there, and they made it all the way down to Cabo.
I like Cabo. But I've gone off-roading in my, I don't have it anymore, but my Toyota Prius. And I didn't get a flat tire.
All right. Well, that's another +1 for the Prius. They also streamed. They put a 7-minute stream on X.com, and that was done via Starlink satellites.
Oh, well, that's cool. Okay.
We do need to clarify. Is it 100 produced or 100 delivered?
I thought it was 500 for $100.
$100, 500 produced, or 500 delivered.
We'll have to roll back the clips to see what you said.
Okay.
He's sweating.
No, we're fine. I'm optimistic.
All right. Well, I think that's the one. That was interesting. I think that's probably we got sound effects now. What else we got? Push some other buttons. I want to hear.
If you haven't yet, subscribe. Yes.
That's pretty good. Well, go to meetkevin.com. Everything at meetkevin.com at the top has a bunch of links. You can see the link to HouseHack, my real estate startup you can invest in. You can see the links to my ETF, financial advice with Kevin, Shadow Kevin. Everything's up there. There's also a link to my newsletter that gets emailed to you every day. It's free. Check that out. You'll also see the Noob vs. Pro Meet Kevin courses, a link down there. Heart goes out to all the individuals losing family members and everything in this disaster in Israel and Palestine. I pray honestly for Palestine because I think they're about to get decimated, and it's devastating because more people are going to die, and I'm just tired of seeing that stuff.
Yep.
Anything else you guys want to add?
It does look like I said delivered originally.
Said delivered.
Yeah.
500 delivered, and it says somebody has 100 fungible dollars.
This is a tough one today, but I'm glad we had this talk.
Yeah. Well, good luck, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one, and stay safe.